Social reality has been captured by a remote device taking billions of pictures no one else ever looked at or collected in this way before. You do not have to imagine things. Reality gives you all that you need. Hey, welcome to the Street Shots Photography Podcast. This is Antonio, and this is episode 178 for the end of February 2023. And yes, it's a lone episode. Well, not really alone, but Ward is still under the weather. So I asked my friend Bart Busschots from the Let's Talk Photography podcast, all the way on the other side of the pond, to join me today. And we're doing a special show because if you've just listened to his show, which we will plug at the end of this show, then we're doing a sort of a two-parter. How would you want to say this, Bart? What are we doing?
A two-parter kind of seems like it, right? We're sort of pinging off each other, right? We've recorded some more techie stuff on my show and on AI, and you want to have a conversation about the other aspects of AI, and I have a feeling we could talk about this for a while.
I think so. It could be the talk of the year. And so we decided to have this, it's not a mashup, but we've done this before. So yeah, let's continue the discussion of AI. And so, Bart, I'll just bring you up to speed a little bit, because Ward and I did an episode about AI at the end of last year, and we figured we would be talking about this some more. And I listened to your podcast where you were talking about your was it 2 shows ago, your Let's Talk Photography, or was it 1 show ago that you brought up AI, which is where I volunteered to be on your show. How many shows ago?
It depends on when people are listening, because it's either 1 show ago, if I haven't published what we just recorded 10 minutes ago, or 2 shows ago.
Yeah. So when I listened to your show, I was like, I volunteered because I wanted to talk to you about this more, because so much is happening even since last December. We're into February of 2023, and I don't know where this is going to end. So we talked about on your show, just finished recording your show, episode 113, I believe you said it was.
Yes, it is. Or will be. Was.
And we talked about sort of maybe you describe what we were just talking about, so then we'll just riff off of there.
Well, so in my episode 112, I described the what of AI. You know, what is it? How does it work? With my computer science hat on, which I always enjoy putting on from time to time. And then I had a conversation with you about the pros and cons of the different types of AI. But that's a real lead in to the deeper questions, which are the ones you sent me lots of fascinating ideas for the show. And so this is morals, meanings, and messages. I don't know how.
I don't know. It would be a natural follow-up, and it's also because there is this. It's almost like it's going to be the conversation of the year. I can't imagine that Time Magazine is going to make Chat GPT or AI or something like the thing of the year on their at the end.
Wouldn't surprise me.
Yeah. But I because we talk about on this show more of the whys about photography, sometimes the hows, but the whys. And I wanted to really sort of explore this with you, the beginnings of what we can start to anticipate and the fears. And I don't want to make this a scary thing. I mean, I'm enjoying AI because I've joined the Mid-Journey AI and I'm playing with the images that I can make, and I'm having a lot of fun. And I was just telling you on your show that I just took photographs of my friend this morning and was running, we did a portrait, just a quick portrait. I was testing a lens and I was just running it through Mid-Journey AI and adding some prompts to the photograph and seeing what it would produce. And it was a lot of fun. And I'll put those pictures in the show notes. He actually gave me permission to put those.
But I mean, you showed me the photographs, and I genuinely laughed and enjoyed them. Like they were really cool. Like the only word for them, but they were fun.
It is fun. In fact, I was before we recorded your show, I was generating the pictures, and I realized this is a big time suck because I keep coming up with a new prompt, and I was like, middle-aged hipster on the street, young hipster on the street in anime style, hipster as a Viking, And that's like,
that one was good.
That was good. Yeah, actually, the anime ones were fun. There's like no end to this, but I did want to start touching into some of the things we were getting to in your show, maybe expand on them a little bit. And again, there's no end to this conversation, but the fact that AI is now we're starting to see it in the news a lot, especially in the photo news, and how it's interjecting itself into our culture much faster than I was expecting. That go ahead, sorry.
Because it's not just the photos, right? So the photos are obviously what we're focusing on today, and that was first to the game, right? Mid-Journey and that stuff came before ChatGPT.
Yes.
And now that ChatGPT has arrived on the scene, everyone is thinking about AI making stuff.
Right. It's so funny because it's ChatGPT, which is all just writing, right? It's just
text,
text, and somehow that is getting more. People are like, oh, it's gonna, kids are gonna start, submitting news, the final papers written by ChatGPT and stuff like that. And I was like, well, but dude, we've been talking. Let's go back. People were making photographs with this thing before that.
Yeah.
And sorry to just add this. I've started seeing pictures in Mid-Journey AI that are generated with text prompts made by ChatGPT. So talk about the snake eating its tail.
The universe, it's imploding. Well, but that's one of the fears with AI, right? Because someone was saying, well, ChatGPT is going to start consuming the internet and we're going to use it as the basis for making search, like with Bing search. Mm-hmm. But if most of the internet is generated by AI and the internet is being searched by AI, then at some point it becomes AI all the way down and it's just hallucination upon hallucination. And what's left?
It sounds like a dystopian... not the way that the Terminator was going to end us, not with Skynet launching missiles, but with Skynet releasing ChatGPT and Mid-Journey AI and Stable Diffusion onto us, and we're not going to know what is reality anymore, and we're just going to sort of turn into, I don't know, this. Who knows where this is going to go? But the couple of things I wanted to talk about, we touched on at the beginning to touch on in your show, but like this idea of stock photography was the first thing. And of course I raised my hand because I was displaced stock photography by subscription photography models and royalty-free photography, which became, and now we've now extended to free stock photography, places like Unsplash, which photographers for some bizarre reason give their pictures away for free. But anyway,
I mean, you say you're displaced by those services, but that's only possible because you can now make the images for very, very, very little effort. So I guess you're kind of displaced by the camera phone.
Whatever. It was probably not one thing. It was probably a combination of things. And royalty free and subscription models came in before smartphones became a thing that were actually because smartphones have displaced not just stock photographers, but photographers in general. Because now everybody, you talk about democratization. Now everybody's got a camera that's really good in their pocket, and we have a generation of people now who are image savvy. They're growing up on images. I mean, this is their world, and so are able to take, without taking photography classes or anything like that, are able to go and create good images. And we were talking about on your show how the camera now is helping to make a better photograph. So all these things are in their toolbox, and the rest of us, and I'm not trying to make it feel sorry for the photographers and stuff like that. I mean, I there's an aspect of that, but now why do we need someone like me who's a skilled eye when so many things are being augmented in some cases by artificial intelligence? In other cases, the hardware, it's now ubiquitous to have a phone, and everybody walks around with a DSLR or something like that, or a mirrorless camera. But these things displace. And now what I've been sort of hearing is like, oh, well, this is kind of the same thing when royalty free kicked in and photographers got displaced by that. And I even got letters from one of my stock agencies talking about that. Like, we've been through this before. I don't necessarily agree based on the stuff that we were talking about before.
But there's a huge difference to me where I think the one that really made me think, oh, is you can, and you sort of hinted at it in some of the examples you said, in the style of. So if you're a creative artistic photographer and you're trying to make a living as an artist and you have developed a style and you're known for that style and you've built up a customer base on that style, and now someone can say to Stable Diffusion or whatever, make me an image of a pair in the style of Antonio Rosario. Well, for even if it's only 75% as good, for a heckin' lot of people, that's okay.
Yes.
If that AI was obviously trained on that photographer's work, because how else could it answer the question in the style of and not produce garbage? So the photographer's work has gone into that, but the photographer hasn't made any money from that. So we have a business model problem here.
It's a big one. And it's not just the photographers, recently, and I talked about this, I think this is what generated the show with Ward when we talked about it at the end of the year, was an image someone made on Stable Diffusion. It just caught my eye. I mean, there's been a bazillion images made on there. And this was an image of a model, blonde woman and something like that. And you looked at it, I was looking at it, I was like, yeah, wow, that's hard to distinguish. Other than the fact that it was low resolution, it was hard to distinguish from a photograph. And we talked about in your show, Gigapixel AI. You can upsample these images now so that they do add detail and make them look like more like an original photograph. And it got me thinking that, okay, well, in the ecosystem for a working photographer, that you now have, okay, a photographer, a camera, a model, a makeup artist, a studio that you rent, lighting that you rent. If you start that little tree of, the web of who's connected to making an image, it's not just the photographer that's going to get displaced. It's going to be...
That's a lot of salaries. I really hadn't put those dots together yet.
Well, did you even think about, sorry, not you, but I mean you, the big you, when someone said, oh, this is not going to affect the business like, royalty free or anything like that. Well, what about the camera manufacturers? If now you can create an image that doesn't require a camera, then why would you buy a camera to create an image?
Well, because I think while there are often times you want to fill in a gap, there are also often times you want to capture a moment. I don't think our impulse to capture has gone away.
I agree. Absolutely. I mean, we will not have cameras, but if we're talking about the economics of it, then, like you were saying, okay, a small business wants to make a picture in the style of a pair in the style of Antonio Rosario. Guess who's locked out of that whole chain? It's not, like, again, it's not just the photographer. It's the lighting. If I was going to shoot a model, I would need to rent a studio. What's going to happen to the studio rentals? And again,
happen to the model?
The model, they may be able to sell their likeness, right? And I'm actually starting to see this stuff, this information pop up that, people are starting to, think about selling their likeness to be used in AI, which is interesting because then I don't know how you manage that. And this is, and so it to me, this is a lot different now than any other, sort of sea change that has hit photography. And yes, photographers and people who make pictures will survive. You're right. People are going to want to make pictures. The cameras aren't going to go away because you want to go take your pictures where you are, and I want to take my street pictures. It's fine. But the economics of things are going to change a lot. And I want to say that this is, and again, what do I know? I mean, I can't predict the future. And who knows what this will then generate in the future? Right? Putting AI into cameras, more than what we were talking about before with just with the classifiers, being able to target birds and cats and planes and cars and stuff like that. But what happens if more stuff gets included into cameras? So that might actually change the way cameras are. But I think this is not the same thing that's happened to photography before. I think this is something new, and it's accelerating. We were talking sort of offline, I think, about a slippery slope kind of thing.
I'm trying to remember the guy's name. There's a YouTuber who usually does science videos. That's what he's really good at. But he did a video on AI recently where he sort of described it the sigmoid curve. So with technology, you tend to start off with nothing happens for a while, right? It is changing, but it's very, very slow, and only a few people are in the know, and it hasn't reached public perception yet, but it's slowly developing. And then something happens. And it bursts onto the scene and it accelerates at 1,000,000 miles a minute, and you don't know where it's going to stop accelerating. So you project forward and you end up in all of these weird and wonderful places. But in reality, you run out of steam and it starts to level off. But the thing is, you never quite know when. When is it going to level off? How high is this going to go before it levels off? And we just don't know.
We also can't anticipate anything on this.
Yeah, because if you project forward at the current rate, you will be wrong. The question is how wrong.
Right. Before we got to recording, I just went through quickly Petapixel, their site, because they're bringing up all the news about photography and AI. And the quick articles I pulled out, I'll just read some of the titles. Can you tell which magazine cover is an AI generated photo? That's one. Getty Images suing Stable Diffusion for a staggering $1.8 trillion. That's two. Popular.
How did they come up with $1.8 trillion? Because there has to be a theory.
I think what they do
we
is
own so many images.
I think that's actually easy to do with Getty. It's like they have a certain amount of pictures that are available online, and they can figure out the usage cost of those pictures based on subscription fees and stuff like that. So they can actually
add it up. Yeah, okay.
Yeah. The next one is popular Instagram photographer revealed as AI fraud. That was one. Keanu Reeves' film contract bans AI and deepfake technology. Here's one that I didn't read this one. Scammers use AI images to profit from Turkey's Syria earthquake. And there's an image. This image is so totally fake. It says an AI image generated by scammers of what looks like a rescue worker holding a child. It looks like an illustration. And of course, the giveaway is the rescue worker has got like 17 fingers. Yes.
Oops.
What was the other one? Oh, famed commercial photographer embraces AI. There's no going back. And actually, the pictures that he's generated. Yeah, one of the pictures he generated looks like, we had talked about this before, like the sameness, like there's a similarity in AI look. One last one. Oh, two last ones. This AI images fooled judges and won a photography contest, an aerial of a wave hitting a beach. And then the last one was we talked about it a little bit. The U.S. Copyright Office tells judge that AI artwork is not protectable. But anyway, I mean, all this stuff is just popping up.
I get very cranky because I don't know what the answer is. Like, it's on a spectrum somewhere, but I get really cranky when people say that stuff generated by a human with AI is not art because the computer did it. But no, the computer didn't do it. The computer was involved, but we have had help in making our images for decades now. The computer has been an ingredient in our work for a long time. And this is different, but it's still on the same spectrum. And if you take us out, you're left with nothing. So it's not fair to say that this isn't art because it was just a computer. It wasn't just a computer. It's not just an algorithm.
Right, something had to get it started. Yes, yeah,
and not just started. It's tweaked and it's honed, and our creativity is in there.
I agree. I agree and I disagree. It's funny because I'm also using it myself. We talked a little bit on your show about like using for a blog, like creating images for a blog so that people can read images, and I've done that. I've created a little blog, which I really haven't continued as much, but I'm just trying to write stuff about the passing of my wife and just how I'm passing. My wife dying. I hate that word, passing. My wife dying, and then just my experience about it. And so I was putting them on, I thought I'd put it on Tumblr. I thought that was a good little place to have a thing that was separate from anything. And it was missing, it's a lot of words, but I want to put it up on Facebook so people could catch their eyes. And I think in images, right? And
yeah.
so it wasn't just to like catch people's eyes too, but I was like, how can I show people what I'm doing? And so like the first little blog story I wrote was about how I felt like I was floating on an ocean. I know people talk about grief as an ocean, but I was coming at it from a different point of view. And I used Midjourney AI to generate an image, not a photograph, an image of a man floating on a dark ocean. And it took me a while to get the kind of image I wanted. And, I just dropped it in there and I thought, okay, yes, it does maybe take away some work from an illustrator, but I probably wouldn't hire an illustrator to.
Right. Would you ever have paid someone to do that for you for your blog? No.
No. And it would have required, no. I wouldn't have put an image in there. I wouldn't have hired somebody, whether someone would have, like I said, look, I only have, $5. How could I pay $5 to somebody to do an illustration? That's an insult. I wouldn't do that myself because why would I want to do that? So no, I didn't do that. And again, it's that kind of low hanging fruit. Like who wants to make an image of whatever. And I did it a couple times. I have a couple of posts and I can't remember what the second image was. I don't remember, but like in that respect, this going back to stock photography. If I can just go there, cause that's my knowledge base, people were saying, well, subscriptions, photographers are going to, lose money in subscriptions. But like once a subscription fee came open to stock photography, then people like, students who were writing papers had access to high quality photography for no cost, for very little. And it wasn't like the photography that we were selling in the first place. Like when I was doing stock photography, selling images to students writing papers, and I just use that as an example, but like, it wasn't even on the radar. We wouldn't even think about it. They wouldn't think about using it, and it wasn't on their radar, and I wasn't thinking about selling pictures. Now it was something, but of course it in some way devalued. I don't say devalued, but photography prices came down, but it did mean that the pool opened up a lot. I don't know if this is the case with this stuff because so far, well, there is money being made. Like Midjourney is charging, I pay a certain amount of money to generate a certain amount of images per month. I don't know about the other places, but I imagine they're the same. I don't know who's getting the money. Certainly the artists whose images are being sampled are not getting any money. And that's a problem
to me. Is it Getty? Someone, I can't remember if it was Getty or not. Someone was talking about using a custom AI that you would subscribe to, and they would train the AI on their massive pool of their own stock images. And so that means that you would have stock images trained on very high quality photographs, and that wouldn't be available anywhere else because their corpus would only be incorporated in their AI. And in that way, you actually do have the photographers are still going to be paid to provide the input to that AI. And people can still use the library directly, but they can also use the library generatively. And that struck me as a very interesting business model because now you have the people providing the value are getting paid. You have the people who subscribe who get everything they got now and they get a bonus extra. You can have a raw image or you can have the combined value of all of the images being used to make you something bespoke.
Oh, see, now that's really smart but that's coming from, I think it might be Getty. I can't remember. It's got to be
Getty.
I think it's Getty.
I'm almost certain it is.
I remember I'm in Getty. I have images in Getty, which I don't really do anything with anyway, but I might have gotten that email because it sounds so familiar and that sounds like a really smart thing because then it's an enclosed pool, those X amount of photographers, even though maybe who knows if the images, I don't know how they're going to figure out how to pay the photographers, whether it be a pool and everybody gets, a little bit of it.
My understanding was that the photographer would opt into being included and they would then be paid an extra fee for their images because they're now effectively like granting an extra right. It's right. Like a second license you're granting basically.
Yeah. That's a great way to deal with this. I can see that's going to happen probably a lot more, but that's up to the agencies or people who are like responsible to do that.
But it also explains why Getty are so strong on suing the open ones for this, because if Getty believe that you should pay the photographer to input into your model, they're not going to be able to make that work as a business if the same functionality is available for free next door, right? So they need to establish the fact that input to the model must either be open, available, uncopyrighted material or material licensed for free use, or you got to pay for it. And so they're very keen to establish that you can't just hoover up people's images without paying for it. And I'm kind of, I very rarely say this in my life, but I'm kind of on Getty's side on this one.
Yes.
That's a very unusual situation for me.
It is a very unusual situation. And yet, also, I mean, I can see that this is a rabbit hole going down. You know, Getty makes their pictures available online because that's how you access them in order to be able to buy them. Right. So you have to go online to look at Getty's website and say, I need pictures of Paris, and they're there. They may be watermarked, which is part of the issue with, you know, them suing Midjourney or whoever they're suing. And because you'll see the watermarks on there. But those images are, in a sense, part of the problem because they've been there all along. And in a sense, they didn't restrict, there's no restriction to see those images.
Right, but there are intellectual property on those images and always have been.
Sure, of course there are. But let's go into this idea of like this is actually, I don't know if I brought this up with Ward or not, but I would talk about it with you. AI, how do I say this? Okay, so I'm a photographer and I'm a new photographer, and I tell students this sometimes. I think it's nice to look at other photographers' work, and I want to say mimic their style, but like, you know, who's a photographer that's very interesting to you? You know, for me, it's Walker Evans, right? I think we even, was I in a show of yours and we talked about Walker?
I think you did talk about Penn, and I will happily have you on to evangelize anyone else you want to evangelize at some stage in the future. But no, we recorded Penn, and it was a fascinating discussion.
Right. So, Walker Evans is one of my guys. So I'd love to evangelize him for you. But I see, okay, I see in his style sometimes. It certainly depends on, and he's got a lot of different styles. He's done a lot of different kinds of photography. One of the things that really interests me is his architectural photography. He did a lot of this great work of neo-Greek architecture in the Northeast and down south. And then he also did these great churches, Southern churches. And he had a very distinct style. Like, he would go out at a certain time of day and the light had to be a certain way. And every now and then I see things in my neighborhood that are like maybe the same age and are lit the same way. And like, I will then kind of do it in the style of Walker Evans. And I've talked about this with Ward, you know, walking in Walker Evans' shoes, contemplating a Walker Evans. He said a Walker.
A little correction, Antonio.
What?
You did do Evans and you did Penn. You were
Penn.
on twice. Episode 74, Antonio Rosario on Walker Evans. Because as soon as you mentioned the churches, my brain was like, hang on a second, hang on.
Okay, good. All right, well, I'll figure another photographer to evangelize. I got a whole bunch of them. But the idea is the same as like that. I created some of my own images in the style of, but let's just for the sake of argument say that, in the style of. And I tell students to do that. I think it's a great way to explore your own photography and find your own voice, because then you say, oh, you know, you start with this and you can move out from there. And it's not about copying somebody's style. It's about
learning, right? Because
it's about learning. Yeah. And seeing what aspects of it you would take for yourself and what you don't like and like where it leads you. How is AI any different than that in the sense? Like I'm using my eye and my brain, and I will open up Getty, and I'm not saying I do this, but let's say, for instance, I need ideas for photographs. I will open up Getty's website and look at pictures of Paris or still lives of pears or whatever. And I see what other people have done. And that now becomes part of my visual memory. And then when I go to make my own pictures, how can that not be part of the image creation process? I want to make sure that I'm not copying somebody, but I might use aspects of it. How is that any different than AI? In the sense
one difference. Well, there is one difference.
Okay.
The actual pixels went into the AI. The actual pixels didn't go into your photo, right? When you imitate someone's style to learn or because you think you like it, they're your own. You've gone and fetched your own photons.
Okay.
You haven't taken someone else's captured photons and repurposed them. So there is a difference. It's fuzzy,
that's
right?
True. Well, no, you're right, because there's a physical difference. If you trace the pixels, you could find the wire that it went through, and right. I guess
took it.
Yeah, there's a physical aspect to it. So if I was like, but there are, okay, for instance, what about image makers or artists who use collage as part of their creation process, which is literally taking the pixels, the copying of magazines or books or whatever, people taking out pictures of books, recreating them in an art way, which creates something new, a derivative of something that was physical before. So yes,
that's a much better analogy for AI.
Is it?
That's
Okay,
a
good.
really good analogy for AI. Yeah, but that is kind of what AI is doing, right? You're taking pieces of everyone's work and you're assembling a new work from it. So it is definitely a derivative work, but it is in a more direct way from the original than imitation is. So like a collage is literally from the original, AI is from the original. So they're much closer linked. And that does get you, and I'm reminded of music as well with sampling.
yes,
We've kind of had this argument before, right?
Yes.
Where is the line between stealing and creating a derivative work?
Well, and I'm thinking that who's going to be answering those questions are not us. It's going to be the people who get paid a lot of money.
Well, it's going to be judges who make the final decisions, but the people making the argument is also not going to be us, and they may not have our interest at heart. It's going to be the people with the deepest wallets and the most interest, and that may be not. They may not be working for us. But then again, you have people like the EFF who will be fighting our corner.
EFF is the electronic.
The Frontier Foundation. They argue stuff on encryption. They argue stuff on basically where tech meets humans. Is where the EFF get involved, because human rights can very easily get trampled when tech walks in, because, the old phrase, just because I can doesn't mean I should. Well, there's an awful lot of things you can do with technology, and unless someone stands up and says, "Oi, no, it's not okay to gather all the information and spy on everyone all the time and make a police state." Right? So the EFF tend to step in, and it's not as extreme as a police state here, but is it okay to take all of our work from social media and build that into some sort of money-making machine without giving the creator any say in the matter? Is that okay?
Have they gotten involved in this yet? Do you know? I haven't.
I don't know.
Because it seems like this is their bailiwick. Or at least they're maybe on the sidelines watching what's going on and what sort of beginning to see how this is playing out before they step in. But
I was going to say, if they're not in yet, I don't think. I think they will be soon, because this is absolutely their playing field, and they're not going to stay silent for long, because a creator is going to come and say help, and that's what they do, right? So where they cross over with us is that someone tried to sue all podcasters everywhere because they claimed to own the patent on the idea of podcasting, and they were eventually defeated. And they tried to extort huge money out of big podcasters like Leo Laporte. And the EFF were the people who stopped that. And so they are lawyers who work pro bono when civil rights or creators get stomped on. When the little guy gets stomped on, the EFF step in. And it is going to happen. That we've already seen artists saying, "I am being destroyed by this." And they are the kind of plaintiffs who the EFF will step up to defend.
yeah, I imagine that it's not photographers are going to get pinged on this, but illustrators or anybody who creates. I mean, all of a sudden, I'm able to create, I'm not an illustrator. That's why I got into photography, but I can create, and I do the hand quotes here. Actually, it's not even the right word. Create, prompt, I should say. I can prompt an image, because I don't do the
You are creating. I'm sorry, I don't object to the word create here. You are absolutely adding the creative spark. Absolutely, you're adding the creative spark. Just because you're using a machine to turn that creative spark into the final output does not remove your creativity.
Yeah, but then it's like, going back to the example we talked about before, it's the guy pointing to Michelangelo in the ceiling and saying, "I need an image of God and Adam. Can you do that?" Who's the artist? The guy downstairs pointing and saying to Michelangelo, "I need that," or Michelangelo who's actually doing it?
Well,
I picture myself
both.
as more the guy downstairs saying, "This is what I need." Make him look more strong and make him look more, make the fingers very close but don't touch.
Okay, but then is it the director or the cameraman who's making the art of a movie? And surely the answer is yes and. Okay. But surely it's both.
Yes. Wow, boy. Okay. Yeah, okay.
It's not easy.
It's not easy. Yeah, that's true. And I just saw, actually, as you said that, this article popped up. I didn't read the whole thing, but the headline, who was the actor who said it? I don't know if it was Anthony Hopkins or one of these older actors who actually questioned the art of acting, whether acting was an art.
Ooh.
And I might, again, apologies if it wasn't Anthony Hopkins, but it was someone in that caliber, someone who's not just some young actor, but someone who's been in the business for a very long time, bringing up the question of whether or not art of acting was an art. And related to what you were just saying about directing and picturing, it's like, yeah, but just because someone says it doesn't mean it's true, or it's just, but it does, throw in that question,
I'm going to cycle us right back to the very, very start, right? You started with an anecdote about making a picture you took your picture of your friend to test out your lens, and you said it was a real time sink. I kept on having more ideas for how to tweak it and how to change it. That was creativity. You were being sucked into a creative process, and there was a lot of you going into that process. Like, that's important. That's a value, and you're going to get things out of that AI that I wouldn't, that no one else would, because you were being creative. You just had a new tool that none of us have figured out what it means yet. But it was a tool in your hands, and you put a lot of effort into it. And the result was something cool.
Right. Okay.
Right, but you did that.
Okay. All right. I get it. I get you. And I forgot where I was going before.
Well, I guess we were fixated. We were not fixated. We were talking about is it morality? Is it legality? Maybe it's both.
It's going to be a lot of it.
I am very obsessed with the inputs, and the fact that at the moment the people making these are just assuming it's fine to just hoover up the internet and say, oh, it's fine for me to take that as my input and to monetize it and to just take it for my own. And I don't think it is fine.
I have to agree with you too. And actually, as you're saying this, it just popped in my mind. I'm on a couple of I see. Sorry, I lose my train of thought very fast. I'm on a couple of Facebook groups that are AI image sharing groups. It's great to share images and see. And I also learned that the internet is not the place to get involved in arguments. And I try my best not to get in arguments. But one of the things I've noticed, or at least in the groups that I've been following, is there's some obsession with that Steve McCurry picture of the Afghan girl. We all know this picture from, even if you didn't see it originally on the National Geographic cover, the sort of almost three-quarter portrait of this young girl with these very striking blue eyes, and she's, it's beautiful. It's a beautiful picure, and it's become so iconic. And there's been such an obsession with it on, at least in Midjourney, I don't know about the other ones probably, that people are saying, make a picture of the Afghan girl. And so much so now that those words are now banned, at least on Midjourney. Steve McCurry is banned. Afghan girls banned. There's probably a few others. But people are still finding ways to prompt the AI not use the banned words. Because apparently if you use the banned words enough, you get banned from the being able to produce pictures, but they're figuring out ways to go around the words. And so anyway, I was scrolling through it and I saw the Steve McCurry picture again, and there was like 4 versions of it. And I questioned. I said, what is people's obsession with this picture and AI? Like, why do people just keep doing this? And that just led to, oh my God, I let the crazies out of the house. Eventually,
I'm assuming Nazis within 5 posts.
It didn't get quite there, but we did get to the well, Steve, quote unquote, paraphrasing somebody, but like Steve McCurry actually stole the picture of the girl because he never asked for permission. Right. And I have no idea. So are we in
2 wrongs make a right then? Is the argument then
I don't even know.
If he nicked it, I can nick it.
Right. I don't even know if that's true or not. And we don't know the story, and who knows. And I'm not here to judge Steve McCurry at all. I don't know his methods of work. And so I don't know. I can't say for sure. And anyway, it doesn't matter. It wasn't what the question was. The question is, why are people obsessed with creating this image in AI? I mean, to see if it can do it. Okay, it did it. Sure. Big deal. Move on. I mean, but anyway, it began this sort of, oh my gosh. And I'm like, is this how the world's going to go? People are going to justify creating AI images by doing all sorts of sort of facile arguments about why I can make a picture in this. And, so this is kind of I don't know if this has happened in other art fields or in the past. Has there's been this kind of disruption or this kind of argument? I don't know. But
remember when Photoshop first came out, how controversial that was, how people thought it wasn't photography and all of these kind of things, and how controversial, how heated, how vicious those arguments got. And now it's like, of course, Photoshop is part of your process. What are you talking about? It's pretty normal now. So, I don't know. I think we will adjust, but it'll be a bit rocky for a while. But
yeah, I don't know if I'm as optimistic as that, but
I will figure it out. We always
do. to what cost is, and I don't have the answer to it and what that's going to be, but like we talked about, like the chain of people who can be affected by this, the sort of the letting the genie out of the bottle already. Like, how do we get it back in? How do people get compensated properly? How do people not figure advantage? How do actually people who use this, who want to be considered artists, become legitimate and say, I am an artist because I'm using this technology? And how does the technology then back them up to say, yeah, we're giving this person the tools to make images, and it's all on the up and up, and so everybody's there. This stuff is the water is so muddy in this that I just don't really imagine how it's going to turn out. And, and I'm also part of the problem. I'm using it for some things, or I'm actually, I'm experimenting. It's nice to experiment. I suggest you experiment with it. If you
think everyone should, because everyone's going to have an opinion. So is that going to be an opinion based on experimentation and knowing what the heck you're talking about? Or is it going to be an opinion you pulled out of your favorite orifice? I would much rather have more people know what they're talking about, because they're going to talk. So at least have it be informed.
Yes, I agree. And, tying this in with ChatGPT, it's funny how those two were so different and the same at the same time. One's images and one's words, and we don't know. Words are a lot harder to figure out where they come from. They're not pixels that are being taken.
But you've hit on what I think is a key point here that I definitely wanted to squeeze in before we finish this conversation. Is I think transparency is at the key of this. I think you have to be clear about what your model was trained on. You need permission to train your model on things. You can't just hoover them up. And one of the fascinating things about what Microsoft announced for Bing that's different to ChatGPT is that when you use the Bing search, which I believe is the same underlying technology but a generation up, it actually shows you both the paragraph and the links that it drew from. So I am telling you this based on this. That's a much more useful thing. And if you don't rely on hiding where you took your images because you didn't really have the rights, then you don't have to be so secretive about how you trained your model. And in fact, you can use it as a selling point. Like Getty, like we think it's Getty are doing, we're basically saying, we have this corpus of images we have legitimately purchased. They are high quality images that have been curated. We are using that corpus to train an AI, and you can buy the rights to use the results of that AI. Yeah. That seems like a very healthy thing to me. That seems like a healthy ecosystem. So it doesn't have to be a dystopia. But if regulators and courts don't make informed decisions, we may not end up where we want to end up. So I think the more people who know what they're talking about, and the more people who have sensible, rational discussions, the less likely it is we end up in a terrible place, and the more likely it is we end up in a better place.
Very well said. And on that, I'd like to end right there.
Okay.
But
so nice of you to give me the last word.
Well,
for now,
end because I imagine, I wasn't expecting to have this conversation so soon after the other one that Ward and I have, but I imagine this is going to come up again, and so we'll have something to talk about again, not in the too far distant future. And hopefully we'll get Ward back, so he'll feel better, and the three of us can talk about this some more. So anyway,
right,
Ward,
because there will be judgments and stuff, right? This is going to develop. There are people with real interest involved in this. Stuff is going to happen, and we're going to have a lot of opinions.
Yeah, and I think it's going to affect. It's not just affecting those people over there. It's going to be affecting us sitting in front of our computers. I mean, it's going to have a real effect on real people. So,
yes. There are very few things we can be certain about in this conversation. One, this matters. Two, no one knows where it's going. I am certain of those two things.
Okay. And on that, Bart, thank you for hanging out with me this afternoon. And
it was literally my pleasure. It was literally my absolute pleasure, Antonio. I jumped on the opportunity, and I'm so glad I did, because I have thoroughly enjoyed every minute of this double show. And I don't normally record 2 shows in one day, because it's a lot of brain power. But no, this was genuinely fun.
Yeah,
thank you.
Yeah, and so tell people where they can find you. Yeah.
Let's-talk.ie, where I have my Let's Talk photography, if you like the photo stuff. And if you're more of a techie nerd, there's also Let's Talk Apple, where we digest the Apple news once a month.
Wonderful. And for me, I'm still on Vero and Twitter as at AM Rosario. Like I said, don't go to my Instagram account because it's been hacked. You can see my pictures there, but don't follow me because the hacker will get you. And Facebook and Instagram, I've not done anything to get my account back. I'm just done with Instagram. But anyway, AM Rosario is my website. If you just search for AM Rosario, you'll find me everywhere. I did say that I'm going to... Oh, and our unofficial sponsor is Ornis.photo. If Ward was here, we would talk about Ornis.photo. Go and buy your third-party lenses with Fuji X-mount and Sony E-mounts. Plus, he's got... what has he got? He's got the adapters, too. What else? Yes, and I'm still working on my photo website. I told you I would be giving you that out. I'm not quite finished. I got to put it up in the next couple of days, but it'll be a great way for you to support our podcast when I get the site up, and you can tell people who want to learn photography to join me, and I will teach them virtually. So anyway, that will be coming up soon. But anyway, Bart, thanks again. I really, really, really appreciate it. I'm so glad that we could have you on the show, and I know you've always been available, and I'm sorry I didn't reach out sooner, but I love that it worked out today.
This was a meaty topic, Antonio. I was looking forward to being on, and this is... we had good fun getting stuck into it, so thank you again.
Okay. And I'll put all the information in the show notes and pictures, but anyway, I will see everybody. Hopefully, Ward will be back in the middle of March. So thanks for everybody, and have a great night.